Every year, on the same day, Grace locked the door of her bedroom and sat quietly on the edge of her bed. In her hands was a small birthday cake with a single candle. No one in the house knew about it. Not her husband, not her twin daughters, not even the people who worked in her clinic. Grace lit the candle slowly and whispered the same words she had whispered for 26 years. "Happy birthday, my child." Then she blew out the candle. And just like every year, tears rolled down her face. Because somewhere in the world was a child she had carried for 9 months, but had never been allowed to raise. 26 years earlier, Grace was only 15 years old. She lived in a quiet Nigerian town with her strict parents. Her father was respected in the community. Her mother was deeply religious. They believed their daughter had a bright future. Grace was a quiet girl who loved books and dreamed of becoming a nurse one day. But everything changed the year she met Daniel. Daniel was older, charming, and confident. He made Grace feel special in a way she had never felt before. At first, it was just small conversations after school, then secret meetings, then promises. Daniel told her he loved her. Grace believed him. But love at 15 is often mixed with innocence and foolish decisions. One mistake was all it took. Months later, Grace noticed something strange about her body. Her period stopped. She felt tired all the time. At first she ignored it, but deep down she knew something was wrong. When the truth finally became clear, her entire world collapsed. Grace was pregnant.
Grace tried to hide it, but secrets like that never stay hidden for long. One evening, her mother walked into her room and saw her vomiting. Her mother's face changed immediately. "Mama, I'm fine," Grace said nervously. But her mother knew. Within minutes, the whole house turned silent. Her father sat in the living room, his face cold and unreadable. "Is it true?" he asked. Grace couldn't speak. She only nodded. Her father's anger exploded. "Do you know what you have done to this family?" Her mother cried loudly. In their community, a pregnant teenage girl was considered a disgrace. Grace tried to explain about Daniel, but when her father went looking for him, Daniel had already disappeared. He left town. Just like that, Grace was alone. For months, Grace lived like a prisoner inside her own home. Her parents didn't allow her to leave. They were ashamed of what people might say. As her belly grew bigger, the tension in the house became unbearable. One night, Grace heard her parents talking in the living room. "She cannot keep this baby," her father said. "It will destroy her future." Her mother agreed. She is too young to raise a child. Grace felt her heart break. The baby was the only thing that gave her hope. But her parents had already made their decision. The child would be given away for adoption. Grace begged them. She cried. She promised she would take care of the baby. But they refused to listen. "You will thank us one day," her father said firmly. But Grace knew she never would. The day Grace gave birth was the hardest day of her life. She was only 16. The hospital room smelled of medicine and fear. When the baby finally cried, Grace reached out weakly. The nurse placed the tiny child in her arms. It was the first time she saw her baby. A beautiful little girl. Grace cried as she held her close. "I'm sorry," she whispered. But the moment didn't last long. Minutes later, the nurse gently took the baby away. Grace watched helplessly as her child was carried out of the room. That was the last time she saw her. Her parents had arranged everything. The baby was adopted by another family, and Grace was expected to move on with her life as if nothing had happened. But she never forgot. Years passed. Grace forced herself to focus on school. She worked harder than anyone else. Eventually, she became a successful nurse and later opened her own small clinic. Life slowly started to look normal again. She met a kind man named Emeka. Unlike Daniel, Emeka was patient and understanding. They fell in love and got married. Later, Grace gave birth to twin daughters. Her life seemed complete. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But inside, a quiet pain lived in her heart. Every year on her lost child's birthday, she remembered the daughter she never got to raise. She often wondered, did the girl look like her? Was she happy? Did she ever think about the mother who gave her away?
One rainy afternoon, someone knocked on Grace's door. When she opened it, she froze. Standing outside was the one person she had not seen in 26 years, her mother. They had not spoken since the day Grace left home after giving birth. "Please, let me come in," her mother said softly. Grace's heart was filled with anger, but she stepped aside. Her mother looked older and weaker than she remembered. After sitting down, her mother said something that shocked her. "I need to tell you something about your child." Grace's heart started racing. For 26 years, she had tried to bury that part of her life, but now the truth was coming back, and she wasn't sure she was ready to face it. Her mother took a deep breath. "The family that adopted your daughter, they moved away years ago." Grace listened quietly. "But recently," her mother continued, "someone came looking for you." Grace's heart skipped. "Who?" Her mother looked directly at her. "Your daughter." For a moment, Grace couldn't breathe. After 26 years, the child she lost might finally be coming back into her life. But one terrifying question remained. Would her daughter forgive her? Or would she hate the mother who gave her away? Grace had spent her whole life hiding the truth. Even her husband didn't know about the child she lost. If her daughter appeared now, everything could change. Her marriage, her family, her carefully built life. Grace realized something that day. The past never truly disappears. Sometimes it waits quietly until the moment it is ready to return. And when it does, it forces you to face the truth you try to forget. After 26 years, the child she lost might finally appear in her life. But instead of joy, fear filled her heart. Because there was something else she had never done. She had never told her husband the truth. That night, Grace couldn't sleep. She lay beside her husband, Emeka, staring at the ceiling. He was a good man, kind, patient, a loving father to their daughters. And for 20 years, she had hidden a huge part of her life from him. The truth was simple, but terrifying. Emeka believed their twin daughters were her first children. He didn't know there had been another child before them, a child she was forced to give away. Grace had always been afraid that if he knew, he might see her differently, or worse, feel betrayed that she kept such a secret. Now, the truth was about to come out, whether she liked it or not. 2 days later, Grace received an email. At first, she thought it was just another patient message from the clinic. But when she opened it, her hands began to tremble. The message was short. "Hello, my name is Ada. I believe you might be my mother." Grace stopped breathing. The screen blurred as tears filled her eyes. After 26 years, the moment she both feared and dreamed about had arrived. Grace knew she couldn't hide the truth anymore. That evening, she told Emeka everything. She told him about Daniel, about their pregnancy, about her parents forcing her to give the baby away. For a long time, Emeka didn't say a word. He simply sat there, staring at the floor. Grace's heart broke. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked quietly. "I was afraid," Grace whispered. Emeka stood up slowly. 20 years of marriage, and you didn't trust me with the truth." Grace cried as he walked out of the room. For the first time in their marriage, there was silence between them, and it hurt more than anything. Unfortunately, the secret didn't stay inside the house for long. Grace's daughters overheard part of the conversation. Soon, they began asking questions. "Mama, do we really have an older sister?" Grace didn't know how to answer. She felt ashamed, but slowly, she explained everything. Her daughters listened quietly. Then, the younger twin hugged her. "You didn't abandon her," she said softly. "You were just a child too." Those words gave Grace the courage she needed. It was time to meet the daughter she had lost. Grace and Ada agreed to meet in a quiet cafe. Grace arrived early. Her hands were shaking. She kept wondering what her daughter would look like.
Would she recognize herself in her face? Minutes later, the door opened. A young woman walked in. Grace felt her heart stop. Ada had her eyes, the same gentle eyes she saw in the mirror every morning. The young woman walked slowly toward her. "Grace?" she asked softly. Grace nodded. For a moment, neither of them spoke. 26 years of pain and questions stood between them. Finally, Ada spoke. "I've been looking for you for a long time." Grace's voice trembled. "I'm so sorry." Tears filled Ada's eyes. "Why did you give me away?" Grace told her everything. About being 16. About her parents' decision. About begging to keep the baby. About never forgetting her. When she finished speaking, the cafe was silent. Ada stared at her for a long moment. Then, she said something Grace never expected. "I don't hate you." Grace broke down crying. Over the next few weeks, Grace and Ada spent more time together. They talked about everything. Ada told her about her adoptive parents. They were kind people who had loved her deeply, but she had always wondered about the woman who gave birth to her. Grace told her stories about her childhood, about the village, about the dreams she had when she was young. Slowly, they began building something new. Not just mother and daughter, but two people learning to understand each other. One evening, Ada came to visit the house. When Emeke saw her standing in the living room, something changed in his expression. He looked at the young woman for a long moment. Then Emeke walked forward and gently shook her hand. "Welcome to the family." That year, on the same birthday she had always remembered alone, Grace brought out this small cake again. But this time, she didn't sit alone in her room. Instead, she placed the cake in the middle of the dining table. Ada stood beside her. Grace lit the candle and smiled. "Happy birthday, my daughter." And for the first time in 26 years, Grace no longer had to whisper. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories like this, because some stories deserve to be felt. Follow for more and don't forget to share.